Hello and welcome to episode number 20 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim, and today we're going to be talking about why we love and enjoy card games. Let's get into it.
All right, so, we kind of went over this a little bit last week, but what we went over, the reason I kind of wanted to talk about it, if you have been listening to us for any amount of time, any length of time, or you know us.
You said this was episode 20?
Yeah. I mean, how many times have we actually talked about card games? It at least comes up in every episode. It totally comes up in every episode.
I'm assuming every single one, yeah.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at the episodes, I think episode number 13 is how we have fun in card games, and that got brought on by the game Unfair, which is a fantastic game. But today, last week we talked about the game. It's on Kickstarter now. It's called Earthborn Rangers. And that is a game that I'm really excited about. So it's on Kickstarter now. I'll leave a link to the Kickstarter in the description and show notes. But if you weren't with us last week, what Earthborn Rangers is all about is it's essentially a fully cooperative card game in which players cooperate with each other. It's set in a post-apocalyptic time frame, and players all work together with the environment, and there's really no losing. It's more of a narrative experience essentially. But it is fully cooperative in it, and the designer Andrew Navarro is former head of studio at Fantasy Flight Games. And actually, Jim, this week, so we're recording this early in the week because this normally gets posted on Wednesday.
Yep.
This week, Team Covenant is actually doing a live stream with the game, with a really early copy of the cards in the game. Andrew Navarro actually was on their podcast.
I need to watch this.
I know. I gotta put a notification in my phone when it's happening. I actually think it's happening. It might be happening tomorrow on Monday.
Okay.
Might be. I'll have to double check that. So at this point, I mean, I'm assuming that video is going to be live on Covenant's YouTube page. So check that out for sure. But we talked about it a little bit last week, and I'm really excited for it. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jim's.
It sounds pretty great.
Yeah, it does. It sounds really awesome.
Co-op narrative-driven game where I can't lose.
Yeah, that's the big part. I can't lose. But the narrative-driven experiences are always fantastic, and if you can put that into a card game, sign me up.
Oh, yeah.
So I got thinking about Earthborn Rangers, right? And recently, we've been doing a lot of content for Disney Villainous, right? And we're gonna keep recording gameplay sessions of Disney Villainous because there's so much in that game. It's a lot. It's a very simple game, but as with any card game, it's amazing how the amount and number of permutations of different plays even that you can do in any card game. I mean, with Villainous, the premise is so simple. You go from location 1 to location 2, just 4 different locations. Yeah. And at each location, normally you can perform 4 actions. But the number of different ways in which those plays are done and can be done it's seemingly an infinite number of times. It is finite, but it almost seems to be an infinite number of times. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, in playing even just Villainous, I just got to thinking about all of the different card games, right? That we have, and that honestly Jim has yet to play, and I need to play more of. So, first of all, before we dive headfirst into this, what kind of games are we talking about here? All right. So from a card game perspective, there's really 3 different types of games that really we both love and enjoy. Yeah. The first being TCGs and CCGs. And so the three big ones for that are going to be Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
There's still a ton more. Like,
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
there's a ton. Like I've never played Force of Will.
Force of Will's pretty good. If you like Magic, you're gonna like Force of Will.
There's Force of Will. There's
Vanguard, Flesh and
Vanguard.
Blood.
Oh yeah, Flesh and
Dragon Ball Super, Digimon came out a year ago.
Yep.
My Little Pony. There's a lot. Transformers. There's a card game for Transformers.
That's dead now.
It's still there.
Well, yeah, it's there. It's there. It's just
You can still play it.
yes. Yeah, you can. You can. All right, and then we move from TCGs and CCGs to living card games and expandable card games.
Yes.
They're the same thing, except living card game is a trademark term by Fantasy Flight. So what an expandable card game is, or a living card game, is you buy a box of cards and you basically have all of the cards, right? And then if they come out with new expansions, as opposed to buying booster boxes, right, or packs of cards like for TCGs and CCGs, you buy the set for an expandable card game, and you have all the cards. So a lot of the times, a lot of the designers, they're where they're coming from is they want everybody to be able to have all the cards. They don't want to, there's always a discussion about price gouging and those companies coming after the consumer, which are they coming after the consumer? Probably no, not really. It's just that type of game and that type of model kind of lends itself to that, that discussion, unfortunate or fortunate,
especially when you're used to other games and it's completely different pricing models and whatnot. But like when you start comparing things, and it's like, well, we get all of this stuff, and those other things, you don't really know what you're going to get unless you're buying on the secondary market.
Right. So in talking about LCGs and expandable card games, the few games that I'm talking about here, you have Arkham Horror, the card game, you have the Lord of the Rings, the living card game, you have Marvel Champions, and then you also have Ashes Reborn.
Yes.
So those are kind of four big ones right now. There's still plenty of other games. There's definitely other games out there. I know there's Game
Legends
of Thrones.
of the Five Rings.
Yeah, Legends of the Five Rings. There's still quite a few games that are out there for sure. So those are the kind of games that we're talking about when we talk about LCGs. And then deck builders. Okay, so deck builders where, again, you buy the box. Normally, you're going to have all the cards there. If they come out with expansions, then you just buy the box and you have all the cards in the expansion. And basically, what a deck builder is, you start out with a basic set of cards, starter cards, and then you have like a market of cards that are out in front of you. And then as you progress through the game, you buy cards that are in front of you and then add them to your deck. So games that I'm thinking of, you got DC Deck Builder, you have Legendary, and you have Dominion. Those are three big deck builders that I'm thinking of. And again, there's still
there's a lot.
There's still a lot. There are still a ton out there.
We can't go down the whole list. Well, we could.
We could, yeah. And I think in that episode, there was a reason. There was an episode where we went through like
a long list.
Yeah, we went through a long list of deck builders.
I'm like, maybe we should move on to something else. Like while you were reading, I was just like, oh, we just hit B's.
Yeah.
Oh man,
there were a ton of A's.
Yeah,
but that was kind of it. There weren't. A had to have been the most the most number, I guess, of entries.
Highest pop.
Yeah, there you go.
Highest population in the characters.
Okay. All right. So so after talking about what we're talking about, now why do we love them so much? Okay, Jim, I mean, you have been playing card games for a very long time. And and I know you've told this story before.
Over 20 years, yeah.
And you've told this story before, like how you first got into it. You started playing Yu-Gi-Oh, correct? And then you gravitated into Magic, right?
Yeah.
So tell that story again, very quickly and / briefly, if you could.
So it was over the course of time when I transferred from Yu-Gi-Oh into Magic.
Yeah, right.
It was really Yu-Gi-Oh into Duel Masters, into Vanguard, into Magic.
Has
overall.
Vanguard been around that long?
Vanguard has been around for 10 years now, I believe.
Oh, really?
I want to say when I graduated high school.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought Vanguard was newer than that.
Yeah, it's been out for quite some time now.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, it was a progression, but started collecting Pokemon cards back in the day. Had no clue how to play it. We were just like, oh, I play Charizard or whatever cards you have, and be like, attack, even though I don't know how to play it. Moved into Yu-Gi-Oh! That was the first card game I really got into. I was really against Magic because a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players were like, no to Magic, and vice versa. It's the same thing. It's still like that.
Way. It is.
And yeah, moved into Vanguard. That became my #1 game for a long time, and then got into Magic, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
So,
well, you kind of have.
I haven't looked back.
Well, what I mean
dabble.
is, what I mean is you still play. You still play
I play every card game pretty much.
Exactly. And so, why? So the first one that you got into was Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Why did you get into that? Why did you get into Yu-Gi-Oh?
Because it was a cartoon.
Yeah.
First as well.
Yeah, that's true.
I watched the cartoon, got into the card game, and because it was like on Cartoon Network or somewhere. 4Kids, I think that's what it was. 4Kids. Okay. And just watching the show, enjoyed it. Had some friends who also played the game, and just grouping up, and grouping up, playing the game, staying over at people's houses all night long, playing Yu-Gi-Oh! It was just, I also didn't even know anyone who played other card games. So, yeah.
So, like, if you want it, so it was more of a, I don't want to say necessarily out of necessity, but that's just what your friends were playing at the time.
Yeah. And I don't know if like I got into it first and then I just met them in school and they also played it. Yeah. It was a long time ago. Yeah. So but
you're old, Jim.
Yeah, I'm old. And so my friend got me into Magic a few years back. Then he went to basic training. When he got back is when I really got into it, and that was Kaladesh release. Yeah.
So there really wasn't a specific gameplay or strategic element as to why you picked up Yu-Gi-Oh! It was just that's what your friends were playing.
Yeah,
basically.
I had no clue about these card games. I'm like, they look cool. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, and I feel like back in the day, it was card games were just more popular than other types of tabletop games.
Yeah.
They really were.
I mean, partially because like you could just bring them around with you, like you put them in your pocket, be like, "Hey, friends, look at these cards I got."
And that's honestly one of the things I want to talk about too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it was very easy.
Yeah. So I think for me, because I got into card gaming honestly a lot later. I feel like a lot later. I mean, it was really within the past like 5 years, honestly, for me. Yeah. And like for me, it was just the strategy. Learning in Hearthstone and Elder Scrolls Legends, and honestly, just those digital card games. I wanted a strategy game, right? I'm a very analytical person. I sit at a desk all day and I think, right? And that's just, I feel like most guys are kind of more like that too. Yeah. We tend to gravitate toward the more strategy games. I mean, it's not like a universal thing. It's just in general, right? And that was it for me. It's just the strategy. And I feel like card games and the games that we're talking about just really lend themselves much more to a strategic perspective. I was actually very interested. The first time I played DC Deck Builder was with my wife, and like I knew I was gonna love it because I love card games and I love strategy. Anything that involves, and honestly, like a mediocre amount of strategy, then I'm already in. I'm already in, and I know card games and specifically deck builders at that time, like much more lended themselves heavier to strategy, right? So I picked it up, and I played it with my wife for the first time, and I was blown away, honestly, by how much my wife loved it. I was surprised, to be honest. I'm happily surprised, mind you. But for me, and again, and it's just this first point here of why I picked them up is just strategy. I feel like with card games, there's just the number one thing in all card games is just strategy. And it's surprising too, because we're just talking about like pieces of cardboard, right? And that's what you can do with them. Like
some decks require more strategy than others, though.
Well, yeah. No, sure. But it's just, and I don't really know like where to pinpoint this, like exactly what I'm thinking of, right? But with so many other type games, right? Even a dice game or whatever, there's so many more components, that I feel like the more components you get, not necessarily the easier the game becomes. That's not it at all, because there's definitely plenty of games that there's a ton of components and it's still insanely
can be really complex or not a whole lot complex.
Yeah, right.
So like there's a lot of RNG factors in pretty much most gambling stuff, but some of those are really complex, or it's just like slots where you just like pull the lever.
Well, and it's interesting though, because the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm also thinking about like even simple card games, like Uno, Go Fish. Like you go from an extremely simple game for like in Uno and Go Fish to something like Magic that is just you can't even build a computer to play Magic perfectly, or optimally, I guess. Right, because I'm thinking of, I swear there was an article that was written not that long ago about how difficult it is or / impossible to create a program that's going to play a game of Magic perfectly.
Yeah, I can't see it.
I think there was an article not that long ago. I'll have to see what I can find. But anyway, I say all of that to say the reason that I gravitated toward card games in general, and I still do, is the strategy that's involved. And even games that aren't card games, if it's a strategy game, I'm in. I'm in. But that's normally you say strategy and you say card. If it's card game, I'm in.
I'm in. Going off of the thing like we were saying, so you have Uno, or Go Fish, and then we have on the other side Magic and the more complex games. There's these few different stages that I've noticed in these card games. You have learning the game, learning how to play like your deck specifically, or how to play your cards, and then there is learn how to play your opponent's cards or what you think they might have, and going around what you need to be playing to stop them.
So it's interesting you say that, Jim, because I'm thinking about the game that we're playing now is Disney Villainous.
Yeah.
So and it's interesting because you honestly have to approach every villain that way.
Yeah.
You got to know your cards, learn what they do. Okay. Now, how do I play with them? What's my strategy going to be? Then you have to learn essentially how your opponents are going to use your fate deck against you, and then how to play against that. It's a process.
We can also take it to Uno, right? Like learning how to play the game. Then you have learning how to play with the cards that you're dealt with. And you could be like, all right, well, I have these cards I'm going to hold back because I really think I should be using these later on. Whether it's the special abilities like reverse, +2s, wild, stuff along those lines. And then you have, all right, well, now I know some of the cards that my opponent has in their hand because of what they've said, cards that they've played. And you could be like, all right, well, I know that they don't have this, so this is a good moment for me to use the wild to change it to blue. Because it's your next turn, and I know you don't have a blue card. Again, the 3 different phases in that.
And again, so we're talking about
Uno's not even that complicated.
No, it's not. Like we're talking about strategy right now, and it's interesting. Like I feel like playing these games, it really helps you develop your critical thinking. Your listening, right?
Oh, for sure.
And your decision making. Like like you have to be on point, right? You have to take in all of this information, right? You got to be listening to people at the table, listen to what they're saying, and this has happened so many times before where you're just messing around with people at the table and then they drop a hint, like consciously or unconsciously about what's in their hand. And you're like, oh, I am not going to reveal this information that you just said, right? Because maybe no one else heard it, right? Or I don't want you to know that, like, if Jim says something and I pick up on it, there's a different mindset from Jim if he doesn't know he revealed the information or if he knows he revealed the information. Like,
did I do it on purpose?
Right. Like, did you or did you not? Right. There's ways of, it's like that poker face.
Yeah. I was going to say in poker, like high levels play of poker, people ask a random question to see your response. And then later on in a high stress situation, they could do the same thing to you, or just watching you play the game. And it's like, all right, every single time they don't have a good hand, they scratch their right eye.
Your tell or whatever.
So a tell, whatever. And it's in every single
high
game,
level
really.
Poker is all about playing the man and not playing the cards.
Oh yeah,
it is all.
Yeah,
about
you don't play your cards; you play your opponent's cards.
And honestly, like you take that same strategy and then you apply that to every other card game.
Yeah,
really, like you do, like you honestly do, and that's what's so great about card game. Like the strategy is it's so many layers deep. Like you have the actual cards. Okay, that you're dealt and that you're playing, right? But you also have your opponents. You're playing your opponents, right? You have to glean any information you can off of them, and that's a strategy. There's so many layers of strategy that are involved in these games.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
You know, there's like really basic decks that you can be playing in Magic, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's green. So
or mono red.
Or mono red, yeah, you're not wrong, Dan. And so, like, you're able to play these decks, and it's like, all right, on turn 2, I want to play a 2-mana creature, right? Most of the time. But you know you're playing against a control deck that has a card that's like, counter this unless they pay 1 additional mana. Yeah. So you're going to hold stuff back, knowing that they have the possibility of having these cards. And you're like, all right, let me go to next turn because I'm not really in a threatening position from them. Go to next turn, play your 2-mana drop creature. Well, now if they did have the card, they either play it and it's wasted, or it's just sitting in their hand, waiting, doing nothing. So you can play around your opponent like that as well in Magic.
And talking about playing around, it's like you have to know what your opponent's doing.
Yeah,
you have to have an idea. And the reason I say that is, our first gameplay video of Disney Villainous, right? It was Prince John and Maleficent, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know the Prince John deck as well as I should have going into it, right? Just from a pure strategic standpoint, you got to know what your opponent is playing, right? I did not. That's
for sure.
So for the most part, most of the villains in Villainous, they each have like 2 different condition cards. So total of 4 normally. I think Lady Tremaine has more conditions. I think she's the only one to have more conditions. I could be wrong. I'll have to check.
They should make someone that has like 10 condition cards. I'd love that one so much.
Dude, you would. That would be great. But I really think Lady Tremaine has more. I'll have to look into that here in a little bit. But anyway, there was one card that Jim played twice.
Yeah,
twice in that game. Greed, right? And it was funny. I posted that video to one of the Disney Villainous Facebook groups, and one of the guys was like, gaining 6 power against Prince John, a rookie mistake. I'm like,
mistake. Yeah. He's like, I learned that twice.
So like Prince John is all about gaining power, right?
Yeah.
And there's a card. The card in question is Greed, where it's if you have more than 6 power on your turn, then Prince John can play that card and gain like 3 power, I think it was.
Yeah, gain 3.
So I didn't know that. At the time, I did not know what that condition was.
Yeah.
Okay. If I had known that, I would have played around it, right?
Yeah.
In a following game with some other villains, I knew that this other villain also had a similar card to where it looked at your total power. I'm like, well, knowing the play style of the villain that I'm playing, I'm probably going to have to do that at some point. Yeah. But I'll have to manage my resource pool, throughout the game, right? And so there's one time where I legit had a decision to make. I'm like, I have 3 power right now. Yeah. Do I gain 3 power, go to 6 and see if they have it? Or do I play this other card? And then, like, if I had the opportunity, then I was going to play around it, right? Yeah. But I think there was one time to where either if I gained more than 6, I was playing essentially suboptimally.
Yeah.
Like I was gonna miss out on basically an action.
Yeah.
I think you just didn't have the card in hand that
Yeah,
time.
I didn't. I even told you, I'm like, I don't have it.
Yeah. So, but like it's the strategy and the knowledge. Like you got to know what your opponent's doing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just, I enjoy that. I really, really do. It's there's all those different. How many times am I going to say the word layers today? So it's very interesting, and I enjoy it. So the next thing that I have here is expandability, right? So again, since we're talking about Disney Villainous, you've got the core set, and then at this point, I think there's 4 different expansions out for Disney Villainous. And actually today, Marvel Villainous released their first expansion.
Oh, it's out?
I have to pick it up. We have to pick it up, but yes, I believe.
We're going to Target right after this.
Yeah. So Marvel Villainous released its first expansion today. I mean, Magic has had how many expansion sets? A ton. Is
over 100?
Has there really
like pretty much 4 every single year? It's been out 28 years?
Oh yeah. Dude, that's insane. Oh my gosh. That is that's mind-boggling.
Over 100.
That's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
So you think about Magic, you think about Yu-Gi-Oh, you think about Pokemon.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's like it's the same game, but they're releasing new content on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Pretty much quarterly, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And like with Magic, again, thinking about Magic, a lot of these sets introduce new mechanics.
Oh yeah.
New ways to play the game.
Yeah.
You know, so the game is ever evolving. And not in such a way to where it changes the basics of the game, depending on who you talk to about Magic.
Yeah, this new set, Dan. I don't know. I don't know about that new set.
What, you don't like rolling D20s?
I do, but not in this game. I don't know. I guess I haven't done it yet.
There's got how many decks are out there that are totally built around the what is the mechanic anyway?
Well,
it's rolling. You roll a D20.
I don't know if they have a specific name for that.
Does it? No.
The adventurings for going down in the dungeons.
Yeah, the adventurings going.
And that's a completely changed mechanic.
That's totally different.
Or a new one. But yeah, I don't remember if there's anything.
I think it's one of those to where they rename it from card to card depending on what it was.
Oh, right.
Like there was a mechanic to where it looked at the number of not the number of cards in your graveyard, but the card types in your graveyard. Well, you remember what mechanic that was?
Delirium?
Yes, Delirium. Yeah. Delirium. Delirium.
There's a lot of Delirium, or a little bit of Delirium in this new set.
Yeah, like I think they renamed it a little bit, like Delirium, and then like a subname or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
I could be wrong.
It could also be based off of just D&D random things. So like the Bard would have Bardic Inspiration, so like a new ability or an ability from D&D just thrown in there for flavor. Yeah. So that's probably it.
Yeah. So anyway. I'm not sure how much more there is to say just about the expandability. Like that's just a way to keep your audience and your players engaged with your game, and giving them what they want. And I've always loved that about card games. Like it keeps
forever
me
growing,
right, and it keeps me the consumer buying your product just more times because you're making more stuff.
I actually just picked up one of the new Commander decks for this latest set. Yeah, I picked up the Rakdos one with the Warlocks and stuff. Yeah, of course I picked it up.
Of course you did.
There was like Esper, Bant, and then Gruul. Why would I get those?
Well, Esper doesn't have green in it.
Yeah, I know.
You don't like Esper?
Yeah. Less. I like it. I like it less than my main colors.
Okay. Yeah.
It's okay.
Esper's a good color combination.
It's a good control color.
It is. I enjoy Esper. It depending on the format. I do enjoy Esper. So anyway. So the seemingly infinite amount of expandability really just keeps me and just the consumer base in general just always going back to those games. So expandability is fantastic. The next thing that I kind of want to touch on here is the tactileness. What I mean by the tactileness is card shuffling.
That's one of my favorite things.
I don't know what it is about shuffling cards, But like if your game has cards in it, I much enjoy just sitting there, just
hand shuffling.
It honestly, it's like it keeps me engaged.
Yeah,
it keeps me engaged from what I'm doing.
It's like those little fidgety things.
Yeah, the fidget spinners.
Well, I hate those ones, but like the fidget cubes, that's like an actual fidget thing.
Yeah.
I hate the fidget spinners.
It's
a fidget.
It's the same concept. Yeah. Same concept. Yeah, yeah. It for me, and I don't use fidget spinners, so I actually have one, but I never use it. Somebody got it for me. I'm like.
Yeah, I saw the fidget cubes. I'm like, oh, those are way cooler. You can like move it around and whatnot, and click, random shuffling thing of like, because there's 6 sides on it, and they all have different things that you can do on it.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, that got beat out by fidget spinners. I'm like, all right, that's fine.
I don't know what it is, and I think it's got to be some subconscious thing. I don't know what it is. It's interesting.
Either you like hand shuffling or you don't. And in Magic, they actually made a deck that is all about getting rid of your opponent's hand, so that way they just can't hand shuffle. I think that was the real reason the deck was made.
That's got to be
8 rack. Or I guess which is now like 12 rack or 16 rack.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Whatever
yeah, it's all about just taking cards from your opponent's hand. That's it.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Every card game player just really enjoys hand shuffling.
Yeah. Not to mention flicking the card down.
Yes.
Yeah. Go to play, tap your mana, however you tap your stuff, and then as soon as you go to play the card, you flick it right at the end.
Yep.
And there are some people out there where if they mess up their flick, they will pick the card back up and redo it.
You know what? I've probably done that subconsciously. I probably have done that. It's funny you say that, because I'm sure I've done that.
I've done it so many times. Well, not the like re-picking it up. I've just done playing so many cards. It's just ingrained into me to never mess it up.
It's funny because so all these videos that I've been editing for us, like the gameplay ones, I'm just like, holy cow, that was a loud card flick. and then I'm like, what was I doing? Holy cow. I'm like, I know what I was doing.
Oh, we know what we were doing. We're being good players.
Oh man, the card flick. What I'll have to do is once we have like a bunch of content, I'll just have to go back and find all the moments that we just card flicked and then just put them into a montage. flick, flick. Shuffle, flick. We can make a song.
We'll make the Darude Sandstorm song out of it.
Shuffle, flick, shuffle, or whatever. It can make a bass track out of it or something.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. So there's not much more to talk about, for tactileness. I mean, it's just, just again. I mean, does it make you more engaged? Does it help keep you engaged?
Yeah, it definitely keeps me focused. That's for sure. Like there'll just be times I just sit back and just look at everything that's going on, think about what my opponent, think about what the deck is, think about what I know that is in their hand, think about stuff that they haven't done already. What is the possibility of things coming out? And it's also really fun when you're versing a deck that you know what it is, but then there's some really spicy tech cards in it. Yeah. Where you're just like, that's genius.
Yeah. Yeah, like it really does help me. It does help to think. It does help, and I've said engaged before, but outside of that, it does help to keep me thinking strategically. Yeah. Like it hand shuffling and just card shuffling as I'm sitting here makes it so much easier for me to just think, to think about what my opponent's doing. It's also versus just.
Yeah, just sitting there thinking about random stuff. Yeah. It's also a little bit like a metronome as well. Just the random tick, 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 tick.
For sure.
Just keeping you on par with everything. Yeah. So. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, the next thing that I have here is the seemingly infinite amount of replayability.
Holy
So
cow.
that goes kind of into expandability. But forget about expandability for a moment. Okay.
Yeah. Even if you got one set.
Yeah. or one box.
One box.
What, like the base copy of DC Deck Builder.
Yeah.
The number of different combinations of decks that you're going to build with that, like I said, they're literally seemingly infinite.
Because there's what, like 218 cards in it, I think.
Let's just say there
is. Let's say 200 cards. 200 different cards in the game. And half of those cards you're probably not going to get to. So like when you're shuffling, you don't know which half you're even going to get to, what cards you're not going to see. And the next game, you can now get those cards in a completely different order. If like you were going first, your opponent goes second. If he buys a certain card that you really wanted, but you couldn't get it because it just came out, but you had it in your previous game, but now you don't have it.
Going off of that,
it's crazy.
Well, going off of that, your strategy could be totally different. Like
the strategy changes every game.
But like you could even have a different mindset and say, last game I built this kind of deck.
Yeah.
Going into, you could be like, all right, here's the kind of deck that I'm going to try and build. So like, let's see if the cards kind of help me do that. But let's see if I can just try and build something that's completely different from my strategy last game, right?
And aside from that, you have your characters.
Yes.
The characters matter so much.
In DC Deck Builder.
Superman cares about superpowers, Batman cares about equipments, the Flash cares about drawing cards. So when you're playing Superman, you're going to be like, let me get more superpowers rather than other things.
Yeah, in DC Deck Builder, the characters you're playing normally tend to greatly influence your strategy. So it's those little wrinkles, right, that really, again, kind of tend to push you in a certain strategy. But you could just say, you know what, this deck or this character, right, is trying to push me towards building this kind of deck. Well, let's try and build in a different direction, right? And then use that ability in a slightly different way, right? So it's just, there's so many different permutations and different ways of playing the game, right?
That's for sure.
So and that's why I say, like, it honestly is, like, you could sit down for a session and play 5 different games. Guarantee you each of those 5 different games is going to be different. Completely, and not just like slightly different. No, it's gonna be completely different. Completely and totally. 100%.
Yeah. And then, you bring up Marvel Champions. You have your character that you're going to be playing as, but then you also have the different colors that you could then be throwing inside of their deck as well.
Well, oh no, you're right. Because
it could be like red or yellow, blue, or green.
Because so with Marvel Champions, it's you've got your hero deck, which is like 15 cards, right? And then you can decide, okay, well, which strategy or color, like, am I gonna build?
I want to be an aggressive Captain America. Or next game, I want to play as a defensive Captain America and go with green and being protective.
So with Marvel Champions, you've got, I think there's 4 different aspects, I believe. You've got aggression, you have leadership, you have protection, and what was the other one? There's one other one.
Yellow. It's yellow. I don't know.
There is one other one. I can't remember what it is offhand. But like, you could take, like, say you want to play Spider-Man. You can take Spider-Man and build him aggression, or you can build him protection, or you can build him leadership, or you can build him in the other one. I can't remember what it is. Why is it? We'll figure it out. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, like, that's one character, and now at least at minimum 4 different decks you're going to build, right? And then let's say, again, you're going to, let's say, again, Spider-Man, you're going to say, all right, well, I'm only going to use the cards that are in the core set, right? And now all these different sets that you're adding out, it's increasing the number of options that you can use to build your deck, right? So again, if, like, assuming that card pool never stops, it will at some point, right? But assuming it doesn't, again, it's just your card pool is just ever expanding. And it's just, it's insane, the number of different options that you're going to have.
And you have different options inside each color themselves.
Right.
So it'd be like, oh, well, I don't really like this card in this play style, but a different character may really like those cards in that play style.
Right. So with these card games, again, and I think a lot of times, the people who make these games, like, they don't envision their game stopping.
Yeah.
They're always just thinking of new ways to expand and make their game better, right?
Yep.
So, I'm obviously, if it's a game that I enjoy, I hope they, the developers just keep making more cards essentially for it. So,
Yeah.
All right. The last point here that we really want to touch on, and I kind of want to let Jim just start this off for us. Woo! But theory crafting. Again, if you've listened to the podcast for an extended period of time, you've heard Jim say the word theory crafting a number of times.
What's that meme from The Simpsons where they're like, "Say the line, Bart," and then I'm like, "Theory crafting, yay!" All right, we'll get that edited in.
All right, so explain for the viewers and listeners what when we say theory crafting, like what are we kind of talking about here?
So you have an overall strategy for a card game, right? Or deck. We'll say deck specifically. Say you want to make it really aggressive, as aggressive as possible. You're going to need some creatures, some spells that get in for damage, whatever it is. But now you start to find out some of the cards in your deck aren't working the way you wanted them to. In theory, they're not working. So you take them out. You put in new things. Are those working better for you? And versing the other decks versus the other characters inside the game? No? All right, well, now let's start changing things up even more. So you have 3 or 4 copies of a certain card. Is it too much? Do you want to see it a little bit less? We'll take out a copy or 2. Maybe you don't really want to see it as much because the earliest you can do it is on like a turn 5. Or, your opponent doesn't really do this as much, but it's good against a different opponent. So now you put it down to 2. So that way, when you do want to see it, you could theoretically have it by turn 7, something along those lines. And so it's just the theory of how the deck is supposed to be working in general versus all these other things and crafting it.
Yeah. So in the majority of card games, right? In a card game, well, let me actually rephrase it. In a card game in which you're building your own deck before you play, okay? So like a constructed format, right? So this is mostly in TCGs, CCGs, and even expandable card games, okay?
Yeah.
When you're in the process of deck building, right? Normally what you do is you start with an idea, okay? You start with an idea of what you want to do with this deck, okay? So you take that idea, and then your next question essentially is, okay, what cards are available in the given card pool that are inherent to this type of strategy, right? So you make a list, right, of the cards, or even your idea could be, I want to build a deck around these 2 specific cards. Okay, so looking at the cards,
most of the time, make it a control list and it'll work.
Yeah, true. So you start with that idea, right, and then you just start, basically like a card list of like what cards are inherent to that strategy, right? So you start there, right? And then like Jim was saying, like you think about your opponents, think about what the meta is, think about what cards your opponents are playing. Again, if we're talking about a TCG or a CCG, and then you think about, okay, what's the meta playing? What are people playing, right? Well, we've got these cards. These cards aren't really that effective against what the meta's playing, so probably not going to be able to use these in this type of meta. These cards probably are more beneficial to my strategy, and they really counter what the meta is doing at the time. So theory crafting most of the time is honestly it involves an idea and making your idea a reality, right? And basically using cards to bring your idea to life.
And it's pretty much always changing.
Yeah.
Like the one really good deck that won this last tournament. Now, a bunch of people are going to be playing it. Well, what stops that deck? What's the likelihood that you're going to be versing this deck? Say it's like 23% of the decks at this tournament are now playing it. Well, you got a pretty good chance of versing this list. So, and then just making whatever other cards that are really good for it. If we were looking for an aggressive deck and you want to play a lot of fast, small creatures, you probably want to stay away from the one toughness creatures because Lava Dart is a huge card. They can play it once from their hand, and they can also play it once from the graveyard. So with it being in the graveyard, you don't want to have a 1 toughness creature out there because now it's just going to die.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jim's talking a lot about Magic.
Yeah, that's one specifically Magic.
Yeah. But I'm actually I'm excited and interested to get him into theory crafting in like Ashes Reborn.
Oh man.
Flesh and Blood, and honestly, like Marvel Champions and Lord of the Rings and these living card games and expandable card games.
All the living card games we played, it was just pre-constructed decks already. So I'm just ready.
Yeah. So honestly,
although at the end of Arkham Horror, and I was like looking at the cards I was able to upgrade into and like change in the list, I was already thinking about where I wanted to go. I had like 10 minutes with the cards.
So what we're actually going to be doing, for sure, with a lot of these expandable card games, and living card games, right? So I want to get Jim, who's he's played Arkham Horror once.
Yeah.
He's played Lord of the Rings once.
Yeah.
Now, I've played Arkham Horror a few times. Not a ton, but I've played it a few times. So we're both relatively newbies when it comes to these games. And I already am in love with these games. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Like I am.
After playing Lord of the Rings, I loved it.
So what I want to do from a content creation standpoint, I just want to start playing these games and just get it on camera, right? And just get our experiences on camera from like taking these games from like scenario 1 or box 1 or whatever, and then just go through the games, right? Start with the base decks and then just really document the process of us going through the games and then just learning these games, learning the cards, theory crafting as we're going for a lot of these. And I'm excited about doing that kind of stuff. I'm not going to lie.
Our journey along in these TCGs or CCG or LCGs.
Yeah. And it's, we've been talking kind of about what kind of content like we want to be producing and making. And talking about card games again, really kind of sharing with you guys why we love these games so much. I've heard some people say this. I don't want to be creating things because it's what's popular and it's what's going to make you money. Which again, not to say that what some people are doing isn't popular, but I don't want that to be like our reason, right? Yeah. One of the reasons I really enjoy what Team Covenant does is they've built their business essentially around what they love and what they enjoy. So both Jim and I, we've really just approached everything that we've done and are doing in Hobbies and Happiness around what we love, but also from the side of the community and trying to just essentially intersect what we love with what our community loves, right? And honestly, that intersection is a lot of the times is card games. And we love card games. And that's, again, just we're trying to explain. Sometimes it's hard, but sometimes it's really easy, like explaining why we love these games so much.
Say whatever your passion is or your hobbies, say you like working on cars or something. So you go to random car shows with your car and you start talking to other people. Yeah. The people that you meet is really what drives you more into these worlds. Yeah.
It starts for me. It started with, you know what? I want to play Magic. And so I went to Grapple and then I met the people there. And then honestly, I went heavy and hard in much more into that hobby because of the community and because of the people that I've met.
I mean, that's why I got into Magic. My friend got me into Magic. I played a tournament. He then left, came back, and then I got really heavy into it. Yeah. Started meeting a lot of cool people at Grapple. And the rest is history.
So, I don't want to scare people away. If you're like, man, I hate card games. I don't enjoy card games. that's fine. Like that's cool. That's totally fine. Like we're not gonna say we don't play anything but card games.
Yeah.
No, that's not it.
Oh man, I
that's
love
never
some
it.
Catan.
Yeah, and again, like strategy. Like if it's
Yeah,
strategy,
if it's
like
strategy
if it's
based.
strategy, like we love that too.
Yeah.
But I don't want to just throw out a game that's not a card game just because it's not a card game, right?
Yeah.
There, you're gonna miss out on so many. You're gonna miss out on experiences.
Yeah. When we played Unfair, that game was awesome.
Right?
That game, or is it Unfair or Funfair?
There is both, but we have Unfair.
Okay.
I want to get Funfair, but for us, we're gonna like Unfair more than we're gonna like.
Oh, I was a big fan of that one.
Right, like Unfair, it's kind of a card game, but it's like I wouldn't really classify it as a card game. Like
Very
it's most
resource management.
Yeah. But that game was so much fun. Like I am from a tabletop perspective, I am typically very open-minded.
Yeah.
It's just if I see something it's a card game, I'm gonna immediately go, card game. What now? You said card game.
Yeah. Or we talk about Monopoly. I love playing some Monopoly as well. It's been a while since I played Life, but I really want to play Life again.
I haven't played Life in forever.
Play it so badly.
I don't even think I have it.
I know my ma has it, so we're gonna have to play it. I just want to know like all the random cards. It'll be like at age 32, you have a kid or something like that. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna have a kid at 32.
I'll be interested to see if my life actually is true. In that game, if it comes to hey, you have 2 kids that are 11 months apart.
Oh yeah, that's the thing, because you're also the little car you have. You can put the little pips in it. It's like, oh, you got married at this point. Lose $1,000. Yeah, that sounds about right. First kid. Pip.
No, it's way more than that. That's funny. That's funny.
I want to play that one again soon.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What were we even talking about? Oh yeah,
we're not against other games.
No, because honestly, like I look at it from the standpoint of I don't want to miss out on experiences. Why would I do that?
Yeah, it's also a thing of if we want to play games with our friends and we know that they are already into Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, whatever it is, we know it's easier to transition them into these other card game board games than it would be to go into something else.
Right. And like again, from the community standpoint, it's like I don't want to disregard a subset of the community for another subset. You know, like that's rude. I think, and as a business, like I don't think a business owner makes a wise decision if they do that.
Also, if you're not into Magic or one of these other TCGs, it's not like we're gonna be like, oh, play these card game board games, that aren't TCGs, and then we're gonna slowly transition you into this. It's like if we know you don't want to play it, I'm not gonna bring it up to you. So
on that same token though, like I feel like passion is very not addictive. What's the word I'm looking for? Contagious.
Yeah.
Contagious. Like, again, I think by now, Jim and I love card games and we are passionate. We are passionate about these kinds of games.
Yeah.
Like we just are.
I've played a lot of games because someone is just like talking to me about it a lot.
Which, okay, before I brought it up, have you played Villainous before?
No.
Okay. I'm curious. At this point of how many games you've played Villainous, I don't know how many it is. You've played Disney Villainous.
5.
You've played Marvel Villainous.
It's been around 5.
What are you like? Where are you at? Like, what are your thoughts around the game?
If you're big into Disney, you're gonna love this game.
Yes.
Even if you don't take it competitively, right? With your mindset. But the game is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not even the biggest Disney fan, which Dan's learned. I'm like, what does Prince John sound like? What happened
it's interesting.
In this movie
it's interesting because I'm a big Disney guy. Jim's not, but we still both of us really enjoy the game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I do prefer Marvel a little bit more, and I do hope that they come out with more expansions for it, and But that's because it's closer to those other card games that I really like to play.
Yeah. There's more
There's more
interactability. There's more interaction. Is interactability? Is that even a word?
It is now, Dan. It is now.
And again, I the first time I played Marvel, I wasn't the biggest fan, but the more I got to play it, I'm like, you know what, this is actually, there's more interaction. And that was one of the first things that I honestly noticed was there is more interaction there. And so for somebody coming from a TCG or CCG, they're probably going to like that a little bit more than they are Disney Villainous. But it's and I even said this earlier in this episode, it's just playing Disney Villainous. There's so many different ways that you're going to be able to go about playing these characters, and just it being a card game in general. There's just so many different permutations that you have at playing these games.
Yeah,
so
that's for sure.
Yeah. So again, we're never going to disregard a game because it's not a card game, but we love and are passionate about card games, and hopefully this kind of gave you a couple just honestly a look into our minds, and if you're not big into card games, which my wife is not, but like I said, she, after playing some deck builders, that kind of got her into it. And honestly, like if you like card games and you want to get, some of your friends or your family into more strategic card games, start with deck builders.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good gateway into the more heavy strategy card games. I think deck builders are perfect.
Especially if it's a co-op one.
Yes.
If it's a co-op deck builder, they'll like it even more.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Dominion is a fantastic deck builder to get people into the genre. Dominion is fantastic. And at this point, there's a ton of different.
Oh man!
I think we did. I'm pretty sure we even did an episode straight up. I'm actually looking here. I think we did. Want to see it?
Oh yeah, the deck builder.
Yeah,
I don't even know
episode 12, all about deck building games. Wow. Yeah. So go listen to that episode.
Yeah.
If you're at all interested in deck builders, so check that out. We did an episode on Disney Villainous. We've done great, man. We're on episode 20, man.
We're on like 5th month now.
Yeah, right. It's crazy.
Yeah, we just hit August.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. This has been awesome. I'm having, dude, this has been fun. I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
I hope you are too.
I'd say so.
So, anyway. If you can't tell, we have some fun here. Just a little bit. Yeah. So hopefully this gives you guys just a little bit of insight into kind of how we think and just why we love these games so much, why we're passionate about them. Yeah. I'm really excited about Earthborn Rangers. Yeah. Honestly, just from the standpoint of getting another card game, added to the arsenal.
I'm going to be 30 when that game comes out or something?
I have no idea when it's going to come out. It's probably not coming this year.
Yeah.
This year,
I'm
there's
assuming
no way.
not.
No way. It's probably sometime next year. And that's fine. I'm totally fine with that. But anyway, okay. Do you have a favorite card game? Do you have a favorite card game memory?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Well, okay. So on that theme, I guess on that topic, Jim, give me a card game memory.
All right. So we were at our local game store, and by that I mean it's not really local. We're grouped up with a couple people recently. Okay. We played a 6-person game of Commander.
Oh, really? You're going to talk about that?
So we talked at this game. I did not even want to win a 6-player Commander game, but it got down to 3 people. It was me, Dan, and another person from our community. Dan really wanted to win, and at this point,
I always really want to win.
And at this point, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, Jim, you cannot lose this game.
Why were you?
And it wasn't even like a cocky like, oh, I can't lose this game. It was
no,
you are not going to lose this game, right? Because Dan's playing his, you're playing Coma, and I'm playing Talrand.
Because why not? In a 6-person pod, every upkeep I mean, duh.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And I'm playing mono blue, Talrand, and which is also a control list. And Dan's is a little bit control, but more like creature based control. And so
with like 30 counter spells.
Yeah, it got to the point where I'm like, okay, you have to focus and win this game.
Yeah.
We got to that point. Dan got out from the third player who was in the game.
Okay.
And then I proceeded to beat him. Yeah. So it was
That's right.
Was
that's right, because I forgot that. Because I'm like, no, why are you doing this to me? Do it to him.
I'm like, because he wants to get second place. That's why, Dan.
And then I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you guys forced my Psych Rift as well. And they're like, perfect, it's gone. And I'm like, flood of recollection. Let's get that back. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
It's a lot worse now. But yeah, that was a more favorite recent moment.
Yeah.
So.
That was a long game.
That was a long
game. It was fun. I don't recommend doing 6-person.
I do. If you're looking for a good time, especially if someone's playing mono red, like aggro burn or AoE burn.
That's true.
Just able to hit a lot of people for sure.
Yeah. Probably one of my favorite moments recently was we were playing actually here at this table.
Yeah.
And I was playing my Kenrith deck.
Was this with Noah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Playing my Kenrith deck, and
we learned some stuff about that deck.
I used Kenrith's ability to bring back. The 7-drop where when it ETBs steal a permanent. I have the
Agent of Treachery.
Agent of Treachery.
Oh, okay,
there we go.
Okay.
Agent of Treachery. Yep.
That's 7 mana.
I'm pretty sure. It's 5 and 2 blue.
5 and 2. Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I paid 1 mana for it.
Yeah.
Activated Kenrith from taking Agent Treachery from my graveyard, and I think I did that like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, that was a game.
That was
a game.
I'm like,
and then I was surprised by Noah's Cruel deck.
Oh, the
Enraged Bobagirmos.
Yeah. Oh my god!
Wow,
that's also another. Also another moment. That's another good memory, honestly.
Yeah. I don't want to talk a lot about what his deck was, but it was Enraged Bobagirmos. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Me neither.
Bobagirmos. No clue.
Is it 8 mana?
Yeah, it's 8 mana.
Yeah,
it's
8 mana. Boy. It's a big boy. Yeah. If you know Noah, talk to him. He'll tell you about it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Maybe he won't. Who knows?
You'll see it in game.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. All right. If you do you enjoy card games? Do you like card games? Do you have a favorite memory, a favorite recent memory? You got a good story? Send us some stories.
Yeah.
Send us some stories. Which, you know what? I forgot to pull it up.
Oh man.
But I'm actually going to do that.
Oh yeah, we actually got a story about a card game.
We do. Yeah. So now I actually
was this scripted, Dan?
No, actually it wasn't. Because what I was going to do was go into here it is. I got it here. Yeah. What I wanted to do is honestly just tell you if you have a story.
Oh, I thought it was the other one.
I got it right here. No, I was gonna. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the other one's actually about cards. So
we still have that other one.
Yeah. We can save that for later.
We'll save that for another episode. Yeah. So okay, story time. But before we get into the story, another story for you guys. This is the one.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Okay. Do you have a story for us?
Yes.
If you do, send it to us at hobbiesandhappiness@gmail.com. And we'll read your story on the show. I want to get more people to send us some stories that way we can read them. So without further ado, this again comes to us from our friend Drew. He goes into it very, very well. So let's just get right into it. All right, so here we go. So I figured I'd try to give some of my stories that are for games other than D&D. So this one here will be about my favorite TCG card fight, Vanguard. This one is a game of pure RNG karmic justice. I was competing in the Chicago Bushiroad Championship 2019. Essentially, this is a regional competition. My record at this point in the day was 5 wins and 1 loss. I was playing the newly supported Dimension Police deck, which is my favorite clan. My opponent and I sat down at our table and began some small talk, like most games would start. It would seem the events of the day were stressing my opponent out, and he was spraying salt. In other words, he was not being very nice.
He was upset.
That's one way of saying it. Yep. He had the same record as me, so he's 5-1, and he was playing a grand blue deck. Every move or card played had resulted in some sort of snotty or salty remark. I like that snotty remark. There you go. I was trying to keep positive. Good attitude. There you go. Some explanation of the Vanguard before I continue. The goal of the game is to deal 6 damage to your opponent. This is done by having your units attack their Vanguard successfully. This can be avoided by guarding, but as damage is also used as a resource, choosing when to guard and not to guard needs a bit of strategy. When a damage goes through, the player receiving the damage reveals the top card of their deck. If there's a trigger, they resolve the trigger, then place the card in their damage zone. There are a few different triggers, one of them being heal triggers, which when revealed for a trigger check can remove a card from the damage zone to the discard pile, which is called a drop zone, if you are equal to or greater damage than your opponent. There can be only 4 heals in a deck. So at the late point of the game, we are both at 5 cards in our damage zone. I'm trying to keep positive and have fun with my game while this guy is just oozing salt at every turn. You ever been there? He finally gets to the point. You know what, Jim? I don't. Don't.
Continue the story, Dan.
He finally gets to a point where he plays a card that would essentially not allow me to guard with most cards in my hand. Yeah. And the cards I could guard with weren't enough. I had already seen 3 heals through drawing or checking them early. My friends had been with me at the tournament, were done with their games and watching behind me. When I finally added up the amount of guard I had left in hand, I started my damage check. It was my final heal. While this sent my opponent into a slight fit, I honestly didn't take any guile or remorse in an RNG win due to his behavior. My friends who had been watching gasped in excitement. I didn't even get to finish my next turn when my opponent scooped and walked away. Once again, that day, RNG karmic justice had been served.
Yeah, Dan, there's nothing more exciting than your friend, right? You know your friend has already seen 3 heals, and the odds of it are so low. Yeah. And he rips it off the top to not lose the game. It's exhilarating.
Were you there?
No. I wasn't there. Okay. I wasn't there at that time. Okay. But I didn't even know about this story until I read it on the email.
He emailed us.
Yeah. Which is great.
Yes.
So it's just Vanguard. So when I was saying earlier, my new #1 game was Vanguard before Magic. The game is amazing. The amount of fun that I had in that game and the amount of fun that he just had in this game.
Vanguard is fun. I got into Vanguard a little bit. I want to get back into it, but it's, again, getting into a new game, especially like a TCT or CCG, takes time and work and money. Yeah. So anyway.
All of them.
Yeah, all of the above. So anyway, thanks again, Drew, for that story. Keep sending them in, buddy.
Yep.
keep them coming. But again, if you've got a story, definitely send it in to us. We love reading these kinds of stories for you guys, for the audience. And let us know. All right. Well, with that being said, Jim, how can people find you on the interwebs?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Morgan. Yeah. Jim Morgan. I was about to say my email. At Jim Morgan HNH.
You can hit me up on Twitter at _DG Campbell and Instagram at Daniel.G.Campbell. Again, all these are going to be linked in the description. Check us out on social media at our for Hobbies and Happiness. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We are on YouTube. All of the above. Keep appraised of our YouTube as we're going to be releasing weekly content for you, for everybody. Join our Discord. If you are on Discord, even if you're not on Discord, join Discord. Join our community. Yes. We're trying to really build our community. And one of the things that I want to be doing is kind of want to be going live in our Discord with people. Kind of just want to get the opinion of our community. Kind of want to give you guys what more of the things that you want and you're looking for. And honestly, I want to know what our community is looking for, what they want. What do you guys want locally and online? So let us know. join the Discord. We're going to be doing, relatively recently, hopefully, a meetup. So yeah, hit us up on Discord. And with that being said, that's all we got for this week. Thanks a lot for being here, and we'll see you all next week. All right, see you, everybody.
Take care.